Hi there, I'm Neil, also known as the Hairy Man, and this is the third part of my holiday to Disney video, and it's going to detail my visit to the Magic Kingdom in Disney World, Florida. Now, people seem to equate the Magic Kingdom to Disney World, but it's just one of the 4 parks and 2 water parks that go to make up Disney World. Thematically, the Magic Kingdom copies many aspects of Disneyland in California, and it has many of the same rides and areas, but the 2 parks are by no means identical. So, I travelled from my hotel at Pop Century using the bus transportation. Now, this drops you off right at the entrance to the park, rather than the more remote ticketing and transportation hub where you would end up if you were coming there by car. So once you're through the security and into the park itself, you emerge onto Main Street with the long view down to the castle, and that's the iconic Disney image. So just take a while as you walk down on Main Street and look at the names of the businesses on the windows above all of the gift shops, as many of these are tributes to Disney employees or are the shell companies that Walt Disney used when he was buying up parcels of land here as cheaply as possible. So you get to the area directly in front of the castle, and you're going left to Frontierland and right to Tomorrowland and Fantasyland. So staying on property or at a Good Neighbour hotel grants you early access to the park. In reality, this is merely allowing you to get in a queue to get in the queue. Nowhere is this more evident than in Magic Kingdom. Getting into the park, you're not in earlier than anybody else. Everybody gets let in to enjoy the stuff on offer in Main Street. Shopping, because let's face it, Disney are not going to pass up an opportunity to let you spend money. So you power walk up to the area in front of the castle, and then you get your magic band or your ticket scanned again, and then you get into the queue to get into Fantasy and Tomorrowland, which are the areas that are open early. And there you are, hundreds of you, on a path about as wide as a road, back as far as you can see, and the only thing preventing you from surging forward is a piece of rope and a few cast members. This is one of the few negative memories I have from the holiday. Like so many people in this queue, I'm heading for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, which is one of the more popular rides in the park, and I'm doing it so get it out of the way early before general entry and hopefully to get in a few more rides. Now, I quite like this. It's part dark ride, part coaster. Queue had a few interactive elements in it and moved fairly quickly once it got started. It's not the white knuckle ride that some of the coasters that I rode on the holiday is, but it is still enjoyable. And I confess I might have just ruined a couple of families' holiday snaps on the ride photos, as you can probably see by me throwing the horns quite a lot. So my recollections here are over the first sort of like few visits that I had, because it wasn't just one day for me, I did this over several days. So over the course of that I knocked out most of the rides in Fantasyland, but mostly for the sake of completeness. So Peter Pan's Flight is one of the few opening day attractions remaining, and while the ride itself is a fairly dated dark ride, I can see why it's still there. Having the track roof mounted, it's a really great way to give an illusion of a trackless ride. The queue's been updated with many innovative projection technologies that interact with the people in the queue, and it keeps them entertained, and it's fairly necessary as this tends to get some of the longest queues. Oh dear, I'm just getting flashbacks thinking about this. It's a small world. It's probably one of those love-hate rides. It's copied from the version at the World's Fair with classic Mary Blair designs. It's a water ride which, in my opinion, has the most irritating soundtrack that will burrow its way into your mind and have you fluent in several languages singing It's a Small World, or during the 15 minutes of your life that you will never get back. Now, I cannot stress this enough. If you get creeped out by dolls, do not get on this ride. Not my cup of tea, but that's another ride completely. But it's a classic to do, and do it at least once. So the actual teacups, again, it's another ride that isn't very much different to a number of other rides that you'll find in any theme park all over the world. It's basically a waltz, but it's one of the iconic Disney rides. Hell, they've even got a teacup for you to take photos in at the airport. So, again, the Prince Charming Regal Carousel, not much different to the hundreds of similar rides at amusement parks and fun fairs all over the world. So, a couple of rides I didn't get onto, Dumbo and the Barnstormer, which are a rotating ride and a starter coaster respectively, as they're in the more kid-centric area of, I think, what's called New Fantasyland, and I'm not a fan of being stuck in queues with screaming kids. So, it was probably not a good idea for me to go to Disney, maybe. So, on to my possible favourite ride, and a favourite of many, many Disney fans, the Haunted Mansion. It's a copy of the Disneyland ride, and it's in essence a very, very advanced ghost train with a pre-show that includes some aspects of the queue itself, which is full of Easter eggs. There are many videos online just going into sort of like the whole backstories and everything else of this ride. Right, so the experience starts off, I would say, in the stretching room, where you get introduced to the ghost host and you get to see some of the best optical illusions in the park, as the walls really do seem to be elongating. Portion ends with something you really wouldn't expect in Disney, a reference to suicide, as the ghost host is revealed hanging high above your head. So the ride itself uses an Omnimover vehicle, which is referred to as a doom buggy, which, when coupled with moving walkways, makes for a very quick load and unload and gets a lot more throughput of visitors. The ride itself is proof that older effects can still be popular. There's a lot of use of black lights, Pepper's Ghost, and good old-fashioned darkness. Maybe a little bit too much darkness. I found it actually quite hard to see some of the stuff. I mean, it's a haunted house ride. I know it's supposed to be dark, but there are limits. So my favourite part of it is probably the ballroom scene, just for the sheer enormity of old tech needed to achieve what it is. It's a mind-boggling thing. You're raised up so that the animatronics that you're actually seeing projected into the ball scene are sitting below you, and the huge panes of glass needed. Engineering-wise, this ride is amazing, and the effects have really stood the test of time. Although they've improved some things, like maybe the projection of Madame Leota into the crystal ball. So once out of there, moving on to the wildest ride in the wilderness. That's quite enough of that. Big Thunder Mountain takes the Runaway Mine Train theme and produces a fun coaster, part of the triumvirate of mountain coasters in the park. So this is one of the rides that can get very long wait times. So if you don't want to spend time in the queues, then there are strategies that you can use to work it out, other than buying Lightning Lane. And so you can try to rope drop it, but you and everybody else in the park will be going for that at the same time, as this isn't part of the early entry. You might get the jump if you come into Frontierland from Fantasyland, but might not be the best bet. Common wisdom suggests that lunchtime will have a few less folks, parades draw a lot of people away, and arguably the best time is during the firework display, as that's the biggest draw of people away from the rides, and apparently there are some great views from the ride if you time it right. So moving on to the second mountain, Splash Mountain. It's a log flume ride and it's set to undergo a major retheme because Disney doesn't want to be associated any longer with the Song of the South because of the racist portrayals and the attitudes that were prevalent at the time. You won't find it on Disney Plus, you won't find it available to buy, so you won't be able to judge it for yourself. I personally feel that the drive to erase that it ever existed is not the best way of doing things. People should be allowed to make a judgment, very much in the same way that Warner Brothers has included a caveat on some of their more dated portrayals, and that again in my view is owning what you did in the past, that you might have been guilty of perpetrating a negative stereotype, but you're acknowledging it and trying to be better. Whereas Disney seems to be almost denying that it ever existed and are attempting to make amends by using their only black Disney princess and making the ride Princess and the Frog themed. I don't want to go into the politics behind the retheme, but I would say that the retheme here is long overdue. As the dark ride part of it is very dark, you'll find that this is a common theme that I'm picking up on. But I did check with a very unscientific poll on Facebook on a Disney group, and the general consensus of opinion is dark parts of the ride are very dark. To the point that some of the figures aren't easily visible, and there's a lot of well documented reports of animatronics on this ride malfunctioning. As to the ride itself, there's a lot of false build-ups where you're pulled slowly up the lift hill and you expect that long drop and then it just flattens out. So when it does happen, it does make it a little bit more epic. It is fairly thrilling, but if you do not like a soggy bottom, then this may not be the ride for you. So, another water ride, Pirates of the Caribbean. It's another classic. And it almost didn't happen in Disney World because Walt didn't think that a ride based on something comparatively local to Florida would be a hit. Fortunately, it did get an opening in Disney World, and it has spawned a huge series of movies and has been updated to include them and remove some more scenes that didn't play well with morality. I'm going to say it again that the dark part of the ride is overdone, but this is one of the best dark rides out there. It does a really good job of telling a story with scenes and effects. So, another must-do for me turned into a bit of a disappointment. Joined a very long queue for Jungle Cruise and eventually got into the boat. And I guess I must have missed the point. While our skipper was very practiced in their craft and able to ad-lib even when there were delays in getting moving, and I just failed to be amused by the string of dad jokes and awful puns. But I guess that after 30 plus years of working in local government, in IT and information management, it's robbed me of any kind of sense of humour or joy. So, over into Tomorrowland. I took some time out from my hectic schedule to ride the People Mover and get a look at the progress of the Tron coaster, which I believe has taken longer to build than it actually took for the entire Magic Kingdom to be built from scratch. But I've got to make some allowances for that tiny little global pandemic. I don't know how long it's going to take to finish, but it certainly looks impressive, and if I play my cards right and I've ever got any money again, and I'd like to go back and ride it. So, on to the final mountain of the three, Space Mountain. It's an indoor coaster with the majority of the ride in darkness. While the ride is not the fastest coaster in the park, it feels more extreme because you can't see what's coming up, and the experience is fairly claustrophobic and does rattle you around a lot because at least on a regular roller coaster, you can go, all right, it's turning, I can brace. Here, you know, it felt sort of like very throw you about. So you get motion sick. It's probably not a good coaster. So from there, I jumped onto the Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin, which is a combination of dark ride and shooting game. It's fairly similar to Toy Story Midway Mania without the 3D element. And again, it would probably be more fun if you're not travelling solo, so that you've got people that you know to compete with and brag about your scores. So the Tomorrowland Speedway. Politest way I can frame it is saying it's showing its age, and speed is not a word I would use to describe this ride. How long this keeps going, I don't know, but the smell of the engines and whatever is kind of iconic, but it's evident that it's not fast. So, taking a lift up to the Astro Water. So this is one of several rides in the parks that use the same basic machinery with cosmetic changes. So rides like this in Disney would be Dumbo, Flying Carpets of Aladdin and Triceratops Spin. This one stands out as it's positioned up fairly high, and it gives some really good, nice views of the castle, and surprisingly rapid in the spin. And you can feel a tiny bit of G-force in there. So the only show that I saw at the Magic Kingdom was Carousel of Progress, and for its age it is still a masterclass of animatronics. It's really well executed and some welcome coolness after the hot Florida sun. So I would say overall Magic Kingdom is probably the park that is most suitable for younger visitors, and it's got some of the most iconic Disney rides and photo opportunities. But from my point of view, as a grumpy old man, it's starting to show its age, and hopefully the new Tron Light Cycle attraction will breathe a little bit of new life into the park. So that does it for the Magic Kingdom, and hopefully I'll be back with my reviews of Epcot and Animal Kingdom. So until then, stay safe, and I'll see you again.
This is the end.